Thanks for watching this video on solving radical equations. This is Miss Scott, and hopefully by the end of this video, you will be able to answer this question. How do you solve radical equations? Well, there's 4 steps here. The first thing we need to do is isolate the radical, or get it by itself. Once you do that, you just raise each side of the equation by the same power as your index. For example, if you have a square root, you're going to square both sides. If you have a cube root, you're going to cube both sides, and so on. Lastly, you're going to solve for x just like you normally would. And then to finish off, you want to make sure that you check your answer, because sometimes in radical equations, we get what are called extraneous roots or false answers. Let's look at example 1. First, we have to isolate the cube root of x on one side of the equal sign. In order to do that, we're going to add the cube root of x on the left and the right. So here these cancel, and we're left with 5 equals the cube root of x. And now we have to get rid of that cube root, and to do that, we cube both sides, because this cube root and cube cancel each other out. And then 5 cubed is 125, and that is our answer for x. And now we got to go back to that original equation, plug 125 in for x, and we're trying to see if that really equals 0. Well, the cube root of 125 is 5, and 5 minus 5 is 0. So yes, this is a true answer. All right, our second example, we have to get rid of this 3 in front of the 4th root of x first. So we're going to divide both sides by 3. All right, then these here cancel, and we're left with the 4th root of x equals 2. Now to cancel out a 4th root, we raise to the power of 4. Okay, so the 4th root and the power of 4 cancel, and we are left with x equals 2 to the 4th, which if you multiply 2 by itself 4 times, you're going to get 16. So let's go ahead off to the side here, plug 16 into the original equation. We're trying to see if this really equals 6. So is 3 times the 4th root of 16 is 2. It really 6? Well, yeah, 3 times 2 is 6. So 16 is our answer. All right, in this next example, again, we first have to isolate this radical. This negative 4 is not part of the radical, so we're going to get rid of it by adding 4 to both sides. So those cancel. And then we're left with the cubed root of 2x plus 8 equals 2. And now to get rid of a cube root, go ahead and cube both sides here. The cube root and the power of 3 cancel out. So we're left with 2x plus 8 equals 2 cubed, if you remember, is 8. Subtract 8 from both sides, and we end up with 2x equals 0. So if we divide by 2, we are going to see there that x is 0. Let's check that really is a true answer. So if we plug in 0 to this original equation, 2 times 0 plus 8, if we take the cube root of that and subtract 4, we should end up with negative 2. So inside of the root, 2 times 0 is just 0. 0 plus 8 is 8. So we're going to get the cube root of 8 minus 4. Well, that's just 2 minus 4. And if we simplify that down, we'll get negative 2 on both sides of the equation. So 0 is our final answer. Okay, now let's look at what happens if we have 2 roots in one equation. So if this happens, you got to get one of the radicals on each side of the equation. We're going to move over this 3 square root of 2x. We're going to add it to both sides. Okay, then what happens is these cancel, and the equation we're left to solve is 4x plus 28 equals 3 square root of 2x. All right, so now we've got the root on one side, on both sides. And remember, these are actually square roots. If you don't see an index, we assume it's a 2. So to get rid of a square root, we go ahead and square both sides. So this square root and square root. Now on this second side of the equation, you need to remember you're actually squaring everything on that other side. Okay, so these will cancel over here, and we'll be left with 4x plus 28. And on the other side, you got to remember that power of 2 is going to go to this 3, and it's going to go to that square root of 2x. So when we simplify that, 3 squared is 9, and then the square root of 2 squared is just going to give us 2x, or rather the square root of 2x squared. So the square here is going to cancel out that power of 2. Okay, so if we simplify this down a little bit, 4x plus 28 equals 18x. Let's get our x's to one side, so I'm going to do that by subtracting 4x. And we'll get 28 equals 14x. And notice if we divide by 14, 28 divided by 14 is 2. So 2 is maybe our answer. Remember, before we make that decision, we got to go ahead and check it. So way back to the beginning here, we're going to plug 2 in for x and see if that gives us what we're looking for. All right, so if we plug in 2 for both of these x's, we should end up with 0. Let's see if that happens. All right, so inside of this first radical, 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 28 is 36. And then the second one is 3 times the square root of 4. So simplify that down. The square root of 36 is 6. 3 times the square root of 4 is 2. And 6 minus 6, well, yeah, that really is 0. So we can conclude that 2 is our answer. All right, last but not least, example 5 is the toughest one we're going to look at in this video here. First, we got to isolate the radical. So if you look at this, we've got to add this 2 over, and those will end up canceling. And we're left with x plus 2 equals the square root of 2x plus 28. All right, now to get rid of a square root, we've got to square that side, and then we're going to have to square the other side as well. So this square root and this power of 2 cancel out. And now here's where you've got to be careful. X plus 2 squared means x plus 2 times x plus 2. And that's going to equal 2x plus 28. So to solve this, we're actually going to need to distribute on the left. So x times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. 2 times x is 2x. And 2 times 2 is 4. And that still equals 2x plus 28. Go ahead and combine your like terms here. So we get x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 2x plus 28. And now we're going to get everything here on one side of the equation. So we're actually solving a quadratic equation here. All right. So we'll subtract the 2x and the 28 from both sides. So over here on the right-hand side, we get 0. Over on the left, we're left with x squared plus 4x minus 2x is 2x. 4 minus 28 is negative 24. Now to figure out what's going to make that equation equal 0, we got to set up what two numbers, multiply to negative 24, and add up to 2. Well, the only way to do that is with a positive 6 and a negative 4. So if we factor this, it factors into x plus 6 and x minus 4. So to make this first factor equal 0, we'd have to plug in a negative 6. And to make this second factor equal 0, we have to plug in 4. And now here's kind of the tough part. We do have to check that those really are solutions. So let's plug in negative 6 first. We're trying to see if negative 6, if we plug that in for x, this gives us a true solution. All right, so just going back to that original equation and replacing x with negative 6. All right, so if we simplify this down, 2 times negative 6 is negative 12 plus 28 is going to give us 16. So the square root of 16 minus 2. Well, the square root of 16 is 4. And 4 minus 2 is 2, which is not negative 6. So this is not true, meaning negative 6 is what we call an extraneous solution. That's not really a solution to this equation. Okay, let's go ahead and check 4. So if we plug in 4 for x in that original equation up top, let's see if that works out. All right, so if we simplify this down in the radical, we have 2 times 4 plus 28. So that's 8 plus 28. It's going to simplify to the square root of 36. So we end up with 4 equals the square root of 36 minus 2. Well, the square root of 36 is 6. And that works out because 6 minus 2 is in fact 4. So the only solution that really works is x equals 4. All right, I know that last one was a little tricky, so if you guys do have any questions, just come find me. I will help you out.